I'm prefacing this by saying that my, female 32 husband, 34, is the only child in the family. His mom has always wanted a grandbaby, and unfortunately, she was never able to become a grandmother as my husband was married before and his ex was unable to have kids. He also tried adoption while single but couldn't, so when we found out that we were expecting, mother-in-law started visiting daily. We didn't do that in the past, started bringing stuff for the baby and spent a lot of money. My son is now a few weeks old. Mother-in-law retired right after he was born and told us she was making herself free and available for her grandbaby. She stayed with me for a whole 2 weeks and only went home recently. Those 2 weeks were unbearable with her being all over me to get to the baby. I was getting fed up, but I kept my mouth shut and played nice. Then she started complaining about missing her grandbaby and not being able to see him every day and watch him grow. Finally, she sent me a list called Visitation Time. In this list, she mentioned when we're expected to bring the baby to her. 5 days a week, and spending the weekend with her, hours from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m, and she said she had a bottle ready for feeding and a closet full of diapers. Not just that, but she wants him overnight on Monday and Wednesday. That's 2 nights a week. Now, as a new mom, I couldn't imagine having my newborn son away from me for that long, especially overnight. So I called her to give her my response, which was a no, but she ranted about how I needed to loosen up and stop being unreasonable and emotionally too attached. This made me angry, not gonna lie, so I took her list and used scissors to shred it into pieces. Then I took a picture of the paper shred and sent it to her, hoping she'd get the message and get how serious I am about my no. Apparently she cried to my husband and the whole family because they claimed I was trying to keep her only grandbaby away from her after she waited so long to have him, and my husband went on me after coming home from work to call my move childish and pathetic. I still keep getting backlash over this, and now I'm starting to think maybe I'm in the wrong for how I behaved the entire interaction with her, but I was trying to enforce my boundaries after she brushed them off. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your mother-in-law is crazy. This lady isn't just asking to take a newborn away from its mother, she's asking to replace its mother. That's crazy enough. But then when Mom reasonably and very predictably says no, this mother-in-law keeps pushing for it. It's your baby. She isn't entitled to any control over your baby. You could tell her she isn't allowed to see him at all and she wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Plus, she called OP unreasonable and too emotionally attached to her brand new baby, while demanding to see that baby almost more often than its parents. That woman is mental. If she's desperate enough, she might try and sue for grandparents' rights. Probably and hopefully won't work considering how young the baby is and testimony from both parents about how she is, but it's something she could try. Let this be a warning to you not to give in to her custody schedule. She will use it later as proof of her grandparents' rights. But you have to play this right. Sending the photo made you look bad and left proof of how mean you are for mother-in-law to show your husband. Instead, ignore her communication with you as much as possible. Make plans for your son, use Do Not Disturb to avoid being distracted by her communication, and don't take your child to mother-in-laws unless your husband is present. You aren't responsible for nurturing a relationship between mother-in-law and your child. Mother-in-law can visit you and your family when it's convenient for you. You don't owe it to her to take your child there. I can see where your husband might have thought you were childish with the photo you sent his mum. Your mother-in-law was way out of line, but instead of stooping to her crazy, take the high road and ignore it. No point giving mother-in-law any ammunition. Not worth the stress. Stop it. The baby rabies is strong with mother-in-law. Grandma is bonkers, and OP's husband needs to stop being such a mama's boy and defend his still recovering from childbirth wife. OP is not the idiot. My dad has passed away and I've gotten all of his inheritance. My dad raised us in a strict military-style household. He was a horrible father who took things to the extreme in our childhood, and all of his children stopped talking to him. He treated us like we were his property and belittled us all the time, almost as if he hated our existence. He actually disowned me when I was 15 because I got pregnant out of marriage with a man who was black and kicked me out to fend for myself, so I had to figure out how to provide for myself and my child. My dad ended up contacting me a month after my mom passed away, crying and apologizing for how he treated my siblings and me, and asked if we could meet up. So I decided to meet up with my dad because even though he wasn't the greatest father, it didn't change my love for him. When we met up, my dad seemed very genuine, so I continued seeing him, increasing to seeing him 3 times a week. My dad also tried contacting my siblings, but none of them gave him the time of day. I spoke to them about the issue, and they told me to allow him to die a lonely death. Later on, my dad got super sick, and I ended up moving in with him with my 2 children to help take care of him. I learned things about my dad that I never knew, and I started to love being around him and seeing him as a different person. I chose to forgive him. It was hard looking after my dad and 2 children as a single mother, but I pushed myself through it until his death. But during the hard times, I asked my siblings for help, and they both mocked me for even helping my dad, told me I should throw him in an old age home, and even asked me to take pictures of him so they could see him weak. My siblings and my relationship used to be super close, but they've become distant ever since I started talking to my dad. Now that my dad has passed, I've inherited everything from him and learned that my father owned a lot more properties and had a lot more money than I could ever have imagined. My siblings feel like they're entitled to some of the inheritance and have told me if I don't give them any, they'll stop talking to me and that I'm becoming like my dad. Since they had to go through having my dad as a father, they feel they deserve some payout. I disagree with them. The reason I got the inheritance is that I gave my dad another chance. I helped him when he was at his weakest, and I went through a lot of juggling, raising my children and caring for my dad without any of their help. Even when I begged them to help me, they just made fun of me for helping my dad and choosing to forgive him. Now, forgiveness is a choice, and I respect their choice not to forgive, but they didn't respect mine to forgive him and added more difficulty to my life. They act like it was either them or my dad, and now are acting like I'm being selfish for not sharing the inheritance my dad left for me. Am I the idiot for not giving some of my inheritance to my brother and sister? You are the idiot. Be prepared to lose your siblings over it. You made your choices, and to be honest, your dad was crappy right up until he died by leaving your siblings out of his will purely for spite. He knew he was a lousy father and chose pettiness in the end. You've chosen your inheritance over your siblings. You may feel justified, but you aren't in the right, and neither was your dad. Your bed is made, and it's time to lay in it. Not the idiot. The father had every right to leave his property to his one child with whom he had a relationship. It isn't pettiness on the deceased father's part to reward the child who loved and cared for him when he was ill. Dad wasn't crappy to the end. He sought out the OP to make amends. As she said, he cried and apologized for the way he mistreated her. OP and her father built up a relationship. Her siblings had that choice but refused to do so. They also mocked OP, a single mother with 2 children, for having a relationship and caring for her father in his home. And now that her father left her with an inheritance, they demand money and threaten emotional blackmail to make her comply. They are idiots. I don't know if you're an idiot or not. The situation's too complicated for such a simplistic judgment, but I do know you may be furthering the harm done to your siblings. I know that you will be changing how your siblings see you for the rest of your life. They chose differently than you. They had that right. Everyone must deal with their damage in the ways that they can. It's absurd to suggest that abused people continue to have a relationship with their abuser. That's not why they deserve nothing. They deserve nothing because nobody is entitled to someone's inheritance. Her father could have donated it all to a charity or a stranger, and none of them would still be entitled. So good terms or bad terms, it doesn't matter. I don't understand why they deserve anything. Inheritance is essentially a gift that a dead person is giving. Update: am I the idiot for not giving my inheritance to any of my siblings? I just want to clarify that I never asked my siblings to come over to my dad's house and care for him. The help I was asking for was to help with their niece and nephew. During the time my dad was sick, there were rules in place where my dad was only allowed one other person at the appointment, and his doctor's appointments were half an hour's drive away. Unfortunately, the babysitter for my children moved, so I was having difficulty finding a babysitter whom I trusted. I also want to clarify that I'm in no way upset at them for not choosing to forgive my dad. I'm upset at how they treated me for the choice I made to forgive, build a relationship, and care for my dad. They made a lot of low blows, using my past abusive relationship as ammunition. Now I understand that they are dealing with a lot of trauma, and me seeing our dad may have opened some wounds. Maybe they feel like I chose their abuser over them, or they had to treat me the way they did for whatever reason. I don't want my children to be deprived of an aunt and uncle because of money, so I do think the best option is to give them some of the inheritance. I've not figured out the amount I'll give them or how I'll divide things. Your siblings sound like terrible people, not because they wouldn't see or forgive their father, but because they wouldn't help you with their niece and nephew, who are innocent children. Consider it a blessing to get a second chance with your dad, and to have your siblings removed from your life. Keep the inheritance for you and your children. You can use it towards babysitters, daycare, preschool and college, for them and yourself. Think of only yourself and your kids right now. Cheeky idiots. Tell them they told him to die a lonely man. They chose to cut him off and accept the consequences. Don't expect to have a relationship with them no matter what you do. They were raised to mistreat people. They're probably going to keep doing that. My wife, 31, and I, 30 male, had a baby a few months ago. My wife has been suffering from PPD, and she's had a lot of breakdowns here and there, and it was just so heartbreaking to see. So I decided to give her a day to herself and take care of the baby. So I took a small leave from work, gave her my card, and told her to do what she needed to do for herself. My brother, 35, and his wife, 34, came over the same day she was out for a visit and asked me where she was. I told them she was doing her own thing, and they asked why I was babysitting the baby. I told them that it wasn't babysitting when it's my own child, and I was giving my wife some time to herself. My sister-in-law scoffed at me and told me she should be home like a good mom, and my brother laughed and agreed, saying that taking care of a baby is easy. I got angry at him and told him, of course it'd be easy for you because you live with mom, so you could just dump the baby on her. He and his wife got angry and started yelling at me, so I kicked them out and told them never to come back unless they apologized. I told my wife about it, and she was sad that I fought with my brother because of her, but I reassured her that I didn't care because she was important. Then I got a call from my mom saying she agreed with me, but told me I was a bit harsh for what I said to him, and I can't help but feel like an idiot for that. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You didn't fight with your brother because of your wife. You fought with your brother because he's a moron. Everything that came out of those people's mouths was appalling. People like that deserve the harsh truth. Otherwise, they remain obliviously ignorant. I'm a dad, and it makes my blood boil and see all the shades of red when another dad refers to being a dad as babysitting. GTFO, you're just a sperm donor at that point. Same, brother. I have 4 kids myself. I don't babysit them. I take care of them, as is my responsibility as a parent. Years and years of poopy diapers, feeding time, band-aids and lullabies and whatnot. So any man not up for that is better off snipping the tubes. It's a quick procedure, I'm told. You're an awesome dad and husband. Your brother and sister-in-law should be taking notes from you instead of offering their unsolicited advice. Part of being a good mom is being in the right headspace. You were allowing your wife to do just that. Your brother and sister-in-law need to butt out and let you parent your child. Then they can return to mom's house and keep doing what they do. My female teen parents, male 34 and female 34, had me at a pretty young age. They aren't together anymore. I stay with my mom most of the time. He has a new wife, my stepmom, a stepson, tween, and 2 new daughters pre-K. Yesterday was the first time I could see him in a while. It's almost been a month because of our schedules. Background, whenever I'm at his house, he rarely talks to me and mostly does stuff with his other kids. So I usually text my mom most of the time, trying not to cry. He and his family were going to my ballet recital. It was Cinderella and I had the part of Cinderella, and I wanted at least my dad to see me perform. In a section of the performance I wasn't in, I checked through the curtains, and all of a sudden, 5 seats where they were sitting were empty. Not even my dad stayed. I was trying to be optimistic and think maybe an emergency had happened, but after my recital was over, I checked my phone and got no messages from my dad or stepmom. I was supposed to stay at their house for a few days, so I went over there to figure out what was happening. He was playing Barbies with his younger daughters. I asked what happened. Why didn't you stay? He was like, oh, the kids got bored, so we decided to leave. I said, well, I wish just stepmom's name took the kids and left. I wanted you to see it. You didn't even have to take the kids in the first place. I just wanted you there. He wasn't even listening to me, too busy playing with his other daughters. I raised my voice. Dad, listen. He turned to me and said I needed to chill out and it shouldn't be a big deal. He didn't see the whole dance. I finally went off, saying, "But I want you to pay attention to me and talk to me and treat me like your daughter. You never do that anymore, you're too busy with your other kids. Tonight was supposed to be about me, but in some way it's always supposed to be about your other kids. I always see the other girls getting flowers from their dads after recitals and getting validation on how well they did. You can't even do that for one night. I feel like you don't care about me." He said, "I care about you. You don't need me anymore." I laughed sarcastically and said, "Of course I still need you. Maybe not for care, but emotionally I still need you. If you can't realize that, you're not a good dad." Then my stepmom puts her 2 cents in, saying, "I'm just upset and I need to grow up and realize it's not a big deal." I just left after that. After getting to my mom's house, I got a text from my stepmom calling me a brat for yelling at my dad and then just leaving and saying I need to apologize. I just ignored the text. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Making sure your older kids still feel like a priority, even when your younger ones require more of your time, is taught in Parenting 101. If he can't do that, then he's a bad dad. As a dad, I'm sorry. He's made his choice and you can also make yours. Please tell your mom about this and how you feel. I also suggest you stop relying on him emotionally. He made a new family for a reason. Do not trust him. This may not be your final straw with your dad, but it will come close. He will learn his lesson when you cut him off completely. Leaving the performance was disgusting. He should be there at the end to congratulate you on it. My wife has a similar dad, and she just stopped bothering with him at about your age. I couldn't imagine doing that to my daughter. Just know it's him, not you. You carry on being great. For the stepmom, the only response is, "I take it that you will be fine if my dad treats your daughters the way he treats me when they're my age," and let her sit with that. As for your dad, I'm so sorry for what's happening, but you do not owe him an apology, and you were not being a brat.